January 2026 hasn't even arrived yet. But supermarket shelves across America have already started thinning out in ways no one expected. Data from Multi 400 grocery stores shows that 10 items are seeing inventory drop between 35% and 80%, quietly, without notices, without warnings. The shocking part is this: the items disappearing aren't eggs, milk, or meat. They're the things that seem harmless, ordinary, from vanilla extract to jasmine rice to frozen vegetables, the very ingredients that form the backbone of winter meals. Some products have had their purchase orders reduced by major retailers. Some have been capped by suppliers, and a few are even projected to run out completely before New Year's Eve 2026. The reasons? Seasonal factory shutdowns, extreme weather crippling farms, energy costs pushing production expenses higher, and most notably, major exporting nations tightening shipments to protect their domestic supply. Today, we're going straight into the 10 most surprising grocery items that may disappear before January 2026 begins. And trust me, items number 2 and number 1 are things almost every household uses every single day. Chuck to 10, premium coffee beans. Coffee isn't just a morning drink. For many people over 50, it's the last quiet ritual left in a life full of upheaval. The hum of the grinder, the gentle rise of steam, the aroma filling the kitchen. A reminder that a new day still begins, no matter how chaotic the world feels outside. But this small ritual is now facing a disruption most consumers haven't yet noticed. The global coffee supply is collapsing in the literal sense. Brazil, the heart of Arabica, just endured a drought farmers called the scythe of the sky, wiping out hundreds of thousands of acres of coffee trees. And when the drought ended, what arrived wasn't rain, it was frost, which destroys coffee plants even faster than heat. Ethiopia has seen entire growing regions washed away by floods, while Colombia is watching landslides block mountain roads, leaving entire containers of coffee stuck for weeks. In Central America, fields of ripe cherries are left unharvested because there are no workers. Farmers simply let them fall to the ground, powerless against the times. And through all of this, global shipping costs are climbing non-stop. The bags of beans sitting in containers aren't delayed because there's no coffee, but because there's no way to deliver it to the roasters. And in cold regions at year's end, when moods dip and coffee consumption rises, the first thing to disappear isn't the cheap blends. It's the premium lines. Single origin Ethiopia, light roast Kenya, small batch Colombia, and the reserve varieties longtime drinkers consider part of their identity. The fear isn't, will there still be coffee to drink? But will I be forced to drink something completely different from what I've relied on for 10, 20 years? Anyone who has lived half a lifetime knows there are habits you simply cannot replace just because the market shifts. At that point, it isn't a preference. It's emotional stability. You don't need to build a bunker full of coffee. But if your mornings begin with one exact bean, one exact aroma, one exact flavor, then keeping a few extra bags sealed and stored in a cool, dry place isn't panic. It's protecting your rhythm before coffee prices enter what experts predict will be the steepest surge in years. No one can decide what coffee you drink, but the market can force you to drink something you didn't choose if you don't prepare now. 9. Jasmine and basmati rice. When something familiar suddenly becomes a luxury. There's something strange about rice. People rarely think about it. No one stands in the kitchen and says, "Good thing we still have rice today." But everything changes when the last bag in the house is almost empty. I remember a Thai aunt telling me about her early years in America in the 1990s. She arrived with just one small bag of jasmine rice. As the bag got lower, she stopped cooking freely. She measured only half a cup per meal, afraid she wouldn't find the taste of home in American supermarkets back then. And she said a sentence I'll never forget. "When you don't have the rice you grew up with, it feels like you're no longer at home." 30 years later, that story is repeating. But this time, not because America isn't importing rice, but because the whole world is running short. India has extended its export restrictions for another year, removing tens of millions of tons of jasmine and basmati from the global market. Thailand is drowning in weeks-long floods. The Mekong Delta, the rice bowl of Southeast Asia, is suffering the worst saltwater intrusion ever recorded. And American farmers are abandoning rice for soybeans because it pays better and carries less weather risk. And when China, a nation of nearly 1.5 billion people, places massive rice orders to secure its food supply, the entire global market tilts instantly. People joke, when China buys, the rest of the world can only hope. Your viewers know this better than anyone because they're seeing it firsthand. In many US states, jasmine rice is completely wiped from shelves. In other places, prices have climbed while only low-grade or mixed varieties remain. One person wrote, "I've eaten this type of rice for 40 years. Do I really have to switch now?" It's hard to tell someone to change the food tied to their memories, their homeland, their emotional comfort. You can't tell a South Asian family to swap basmati for long-grain rice, just as you can't tell an Italian to replace spaghetti with instant noodles. But you can speak honestly and directly. If jasmine or basmati is your family's daily staple, keeping an extra 5 to 10 kilo at home is not panic buying. It's responsible preparation. Rice lasts a long time when stored correctly, and when the market hits the tight supply window in the opening weeks of 2026, you won't find yourself driving to 5 different stores just to locate the grain you've eaten your whole life. Rice doesn't just feed the stomach. Sometimes it feeds memory, and memory is not something you want to lose just because the global supply chain is breaking apart piece by piece. 8. Vanilla extract. The tiny bottle with a very big punch to your grocery bill. If there's one flavoring quietly shifting from a cheap baking extra to a full-on luxury item on supermarket shelves, it's vanilla extract. Few people realize this. About 80% of the world's natural vanilla comes from one fragile strip of land, Madagascar. This isn't corn you plant and harvest in a few months. Vanilla is an orchid, hand-pollinated, taking 3 to 4 years to produce its first bean. Meaning, a single destructive storm doesn't just wipe out this year's harvest. It wipes out several years of future supply. In recent years, Madagascar has been hit repeatedly by tropical cyclones, heavy rains, and flash floods, wiping out thousands of hectares of vanilla farms. At the same time, secondary growing regions like Comoros and Uganda can't produce enough to compensate. The global market has been warning for years. Vanilla is becoming one of the most expensive flavoring ingredients on the planet, more expensive than silver per gram. Then came the second blow. US vanilla reserves caught fire, destroying a large portion of the backup supply meant to stabilize prices during bad harvest years. The global supply chain is hanging by a thread, and America just lost its safety cushion. Meanwhile, demand keeps rising. Coffee chains launching endless vanilla lattes and vanilla cold brews. Ice cream, protein shakes, yogurt, breakfast cereal, all depend on vanilla. The holiday season, when every household is baking, making cookies, and preparing desserts. What does the consumer see? Bottles getting smaller, prices creeping up, more labels switching from pure vanilla extract to vanilla flavor or natural flavor. That's shrinkflation plus downgrade happening right in front of you. And when everything else is already getting more expensive, paying a few extra dollars for vanilla each time becomes a real burden. So what should you do? This isn't a call to stockpile. But if your household regularly bakes, makes desserts, or enjoys vanilla-flavored coffee, keeping 1 or 2 bottles of pure vanilla extract before the next price jump is completely reasonable. In this context, that tiny bottle in your pantry isn't just for adding a nice smell. It's a test of whether you prepare ahead or wait until the shelf is empty and regret it. 7. Cooking oil, sunflower, canola, olive oil. When you can't even fry an egg, that's when you realize how much your kitchen depends on oil. Cooking oil is something most people never think about until the day they pick up a pan and discover the last bottle has only a few drops left. And as the world moves into January 2026, that situation is unfolding faster than in any previous year. Sunflower oil from the Black Sea region is nearly cut off due to prolonged conflict. Factories that once produced millions of liters a month are operating at a crawl. As the food industry shifts to soybean, canola, and olive oils, the pressure lands squarely on supplies that were already stretched thin. Right at the peak of the holiday season, the time Americans use the most cooking oil, restaurants are scrambling to switch to cheaper alternatives just to survive, while snack manufacturers are stockpiling raw oil to keep their production lines running. You may not see these quiet battles, but you feel them when you walk into a grocery store and notice the empty gaps slowly spreading across the shelves. And here's the thing. Running out of cooking oil isn't like running out of one food item. It feels like your entire kitchen gets locked. You can't fry an egg, you can't sauté vegetables, you can't cook a proper dinner for your family. It's an everyday kind of helplessness, but more frustrating than almost any other shortage. You don't need to stockpile oil like you're preparing for bunker life. But if your household cooks regularly, if you know you'll use it, then keeping a few bottles of canola or olive oil in a cool, dark place isn't hoarding. It's preventing a very inconvenient winter. And anyone who's stood over a hot stove, egg already cracked, only to realize there's no oil left, knows exactly why preparing ahead matters. Before we move to the next item, I genuinely want to know, in your area, which type of oil has started disappearing or rising in price the fastest? Share it in the comments. Real viewer reports reflect reality far faster than any official data. 6. Frozen vegetables. When your freezer becomes the only garden you have left. In many northern states, entering January means entering the season of no vegetables. Grocery stores may be full of bread, canned meat, and frozen meals. But fresh produce is wilted, limited, and so expensive that people have to think twice before picking up a single bunch. For countless families over 50 who want to keep their meals healthy, frozen vegetables become the winter garden. The thing that keeps their plates green when everything outside is ice and snow. Behind a $3 bag of frozen broccoli is an enormous machine. Farms must harvest on the exact right day. Factories must wash, cut, prep within hours. The freezing line must run non-stop. Cold storage can't lose power. And refrigerated trucks must deliver on schedule. If even one link breaks, a storm knocks down power lines, a drought ruins a crop, or a snowstorm shuts down highways, entire freezer aisles can go empty in just a few days. Many people have already seen this. Online orders partially canceled because of temporary shortages. The familiar brand of spinach you've bought for 10-20 years suddenly gone, replaced with a smaller brand at nearly double the price. The scariest moment isn't no vegetables, but opening the freezer, the place that used to feel safe, and finding it nearly empty. Preparing for that scenario isn't complicated. When broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, or mixed veggies are still fully stocked and reasonably priced, just add 1 or 2 extra bags to your cart and keep them in the freezer. Those who are more careful can buy fresh produce on sale, blanch it quickly, and freeze it themselves. This isn't panic buying. It's making sure your winter meals don't turn into nothing but carbs and canned meat just because the supply chain decides to catch a cold at the coldest time of the year. 5 canned soups and bone broth. The food for sick days, cold days, and the moments when you just don't have the strength to cook. Anyone over 50 knows this feeling. There are days when the body is exhausted, the throat burns, your hands shake from the cold, and the only thing you want is a bowl of something hot, soft, and easy to swallow. In those moments, a can of soup or a box of bone broth can rescue the entire day. But these simple, comforting foods are disappearing from shelves faster than most people realize. The prices of meat, vegetables, onions, all rising sharply. Factories are short on labor, and metal can prices are climbing with the global market. Just one snowstorm that paralyzes transportation can leave the soup aisle wiped clean in a single afternoon. Many viewers have shared the same story. They didn't realize they were down to their last can of soup until they got sick. And early 2026 is shaping up to be a repeat of that situation, only more stressful. You don't need to buy entire cases. But if canned soup or bone broth is something you rely on when you're tired, when it's cold, or when you simply don't have the energy to cook, keeping a few extra cans on hand isn't stockpiling. It's preparing for the exact moment you'll truly need it. 4. Baby formula, especially sensitive and specialized types. This isn't about price. This is about a child's survival. There is no grocery item that creates more fear in a community than baby formula. Adults can switch brands or flavors. Infants cannot. And for babies who rely on sensitive formulas, hypoallergenic, gentle, amino acid-based, missing the exact one can throw an entire household into crisis. Late winter and early January are always the riskiest months. Factories shut down for maintenance, bad weather slows transportation, and import rules tighten. When supply drops, it's always the specialty formulas, the doctor-recommended ones, that disappear first. One mother wrote in a comment, "I drove to 6 stores and found only 1 can. Not the kind my baby needs. I cried right there at the counter." You don't need more explanation than that to understand why this is every parent's worst nightmare. For this segment, one safety line is absolutely mandatory. All decisions about infant formula must follow your pediatrician's guidance. No DIY recipes, no substitutions, no mixing instructions. But here's the reality families face this winter. If your baby needs a specific formula, don't wait until the last can is half empty. Keeping 1 or 2 backup containers during the cold months isn't panic buying. It's protecting your child from a very real risk. By January 2026, many areas may not have enough stock for families to choose the right type. And to drive engagement without touching VAOYT. Has your area ever experienced a formula shortage? Share your experience so other parents can prepare. 3. Nuts and nut butters. Once seen as a luxury, now the most compact survival energy you can buy. In easy years, almonds or peanut butter are just snacks. But when food starts to run short, they suddenly become as valuable as gold. High energy, long-lasting, no cooking required, and able to carry you through an entire day. What few people realize is this. Behind a small bag of almonds is an agricultural chain that's collapsing under pressure. California, the source of most of America's almonds and walnuts, is being forced to choose between watering trees or letting them die because of extreme water shortages. In pistachio-growing regions, prolonged drought is killing entire orchards. On top of that, storms and flooding in the south are wiping out pecan farms. As supply drops, the food industry begins shifting in every direction. Snacks reduce the nut content in their recipes. Granola bars change ingredients, and high-quality nut varieties quietly disappear from shelves. In viewer discussions, you'll notice a clear trend. People are stocking peanut butter, freezing nuts, or searching for cheaper alternatives. Not because they're panicking, but because they understand something simple. While meat and dairy prices swing wildly, nuts and nut butters remain the most stable source of protein, fat, and energy, especially for older adults who can't always prepare 3 full meals a day. As winter and the holiday baking season arrive, demand will surge, and every type of nut will get even more expensive. So if your household uses nuts or peanut butter regularly, now is the best time to make sure you have enough. Not to hoard, but to avoid being caught off guard when the market shifts overnight. 2. Greek yogurt and high-protein dairy products, small, but a lifeline of protein for anyone over 50. For many people entering their 50s, 60s, and 70s, a cup of Greek yogurt in the morning isn't a preference anymore. It's the easiest, most digestible dose of protein they can get. It helps maintain muscle, supports digestion, and feels lighter than meat or fish. But the dairy market is going through a slow, steady squeeze. Feed prices rising, extreme weather reducing raw milk supply, processing plants struggling with energy costs, and packaging that's both more expensive and harder to source. This creates early warning signs that attentive viewers have already noticed. The usual yogurt flavor being in stock one week and gone the next. Larger containers disappearing first, smaller cups replacing them, and prices creeping up in tiny increments that most people overlook. Quiet changes, but unsettling for anyone who relies on these products daily. Greek yogurt, kefir, skyr, cottage cheese, they all fall into the group most sensitive to milk shortages. By the end of the year, when dairy demand spikes and factories reduce output for the holidays, these gaps on the shelf become even more obvious. If this is your main protein source, especially if your doctor recommends increasing protein to protect muscle and bone health, then it's not just food. It's part of your daily well-being. When you see your preferred brand still available, many people choose to pick up an extra container or two, just to ensure they have enough. With a typical shelf life of 2 to 3 weeks, it's one of the safer items to keep on hand for anyone who depends on it for breakfast or a midday boost. And as shortages tighten, having backup options, regular yogurt mixed with whey protein, or switching temporarily to cottage cheese, can help you maintain your protein intake without being thrown off by sudden changes in the market. 1. Aluminum foil. A household item you can't eat, but your entire kitchen depends on it. Most people never think about aluminum foil, yet it's the backbone of the American kitchen. Roasting a turkey, covering a lasagna tray, baking potatoes, lining a sheet pan, freezing leftovers, all of it stops the moment you run out. And from late 2025 into early 2026, foil has quietly become one of the most unstable items in the grocery supply chain. The reasons are painfully simple. Producing aluminum requires massive amounts of electricity, and soaring energy costs have forced several smelters to slow down or shut down. Foil mills rely heavily on European machinery, and replacement parts are stuck in a global supply chain bottleneck. Meanwhile, China has sharply reduced aluminum exports to prioritize its domestic manufacturing. The consequences are already showing on store shelves. Rolls that look identical but are noticeably shorter, clear shrinkflation right in front of us. Grocery chains report declining inventory, and the packaging industry has warned that foil shortages will spill over into frozen meals, takeout containers, and restaurant supply. This isn't a call to stockpile mountains of foil. But if your household uses it daily, if it's part of your cooking routine, your food prep, or your freezer storage, picking up an extra roll or two before the cold months and the start of 2026 isn't panic buying. It's simply preventing your kitchen from coming to a standstill because of one small, deceptively simple item. We don't need to panic, and we don't need to buy out entire shelves. What we do need is to look directly at these 10 items. Choose the ones your family uses every week and prepare calmly, one small step at a time, before January 2026 arrives. Because once the new year begins, every sign points to the same conclusion. The items that are scarce today will be even harder to find tomorrow. And to close this video on a strong note, speak straight to your viewers. Out of these 10 items, which one has already started disappearing or rising in price where you live? Leave your state, your city, and your experience in the comments. You are the ones mapping the real picture of this shortage.